Hello and welcome to Newsday, your number one resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Sorry, I am a day late, but I do want to say Happy New Year! 2019 has been an absolutely incredible year for VR and this channel, and I just want to thank every single one of you for being here today and in the past or the future. We just hit 50,000 subs, and that was a huge goal I had for 2019, but I never thought it would actually happen. Well, y'all did it. Thank you again. Now let's kick some ass this year and show more of the world why VR is awesome. But without further ado, let's get right into the news. So before I talk about these new Tesla gloves and how all of TESLASUIT's products together are a pretty clear image of what the next decade of VR could look like, there's more than meets the eye, believe me. Let's talk about some of the smaller news items from this past week. First, let's talk about how incredible the sales have been for VR games for the month of December. We already knew that Boneworks did really well its first few days of being on the Steam store, but more precise numbers have come out that within its first week, more than 100,000 units were sold on Steam alone, grossing an estimated $3+ million. Just to put that in perspective, the last time numbers like this made news was when Beat Saber sold its first 100,000 units, within a month on all platforms. We all know how ubiquitous Beat Saber and owning a VR headset is, so a title passing up Beat Saber in terms of momentum of units being sold is insane. I think something pretty genius from Stress Level Zero was understanding how games are sold, and that's through hyping up gameplay and features on places like YouTube. What's even better is that Stress Level Zero didn't even have to spend millions on a marketing budget. They are their own marketing with Node. Another awesome thing I noticed is the way SLZ marketed their game through videos they already had on a massively popular channel. People that previously wouldn't have even been interested in VR were there to watch and maybe even buy headsets just to play the game. But Boneworks is not the only game to be smashing records and making news due to how well they've sold this holiday season. Over the week of Christmas, Superhot VR grossed over $2 million of revenue. This is what Callum Underwood, director of special projects for Superhot, had to say to Road to VR when asked to comment on the sales number statement. Quote, "We're releasing these sale numbers not to brag, but to provide insight into what a successful game can bring in VR. We tend to not involve ourselves in VR is dead or year of VR conversations, as we mostly just enjoy making the games, and then working on making those games make money. Thanks to all the new, existing, and returning players. We hope your holiday period was as good as ours." End quote. And fair enough. For me at least, it's exciting to see so many copies of games being sold within the VR space. If this is how well Superhot and Boneworks is doing, imagine the massive jump in sales for all developers that didn't care to share their sales numbers, even if they're likely not as impressive as $2 or $3 million within a week. A lot of indie game creation in the VR space can be pretty risky. Thousands of hours thrown into developing a game from teams that may only sell a few thousand copies. Whether that's due to the marketing from said game or the game itself, or VR just being relatively small compared to other areas of gaming, I'm just happy to see these games sell well. All this does is bring more eyes and more talent into our corner, making more games for our devices. More good games equals more people buying said games, which means more people wanting to make games, and that brings more people into VR. It's a cascade effect, and this is what I really mean when I say that the future of this industry is looking good. Alright, now on to our main topic, TESLASUIT and their gloves. Not only the gloves, but all their products thrown together into a cohesive package. But first, let me just go down the list of features on the TESLASUIT gloves to get your mind racing of all the things you could do with them. So as I've said before about other things, these allow you to feel in VR using haptic feedback, and the important part here is force feedback. While haptics are something that we already utilize heavily now, force feedback is a real game changer for immersion moving forward. With force feedback, you could feel geometry because your fingers are physically held back by something. In this case, it's an exoskeleton over the gloves. This isn't new per se. Haptics gloves have had a similar technology with an exoskeleton that goes over your hands and physically restrains your fingers while interacting with the virtual mesh. And while it's true, TESLASUIT gloves don't do as many things as haptics gloves. I mean, there's no microfluid skin or cooling and heat options. You also don't need an entire air compressor with Tesla's offerings like you need with haptics. Instead of using the fluid or air-filled membranes to simulate touch, TESLASUIT uses 9 electrodes on each fingertip to simulate different textures and touch itself. So while the gloves are cool, I really want to talk about the whole package because this is where it gets really awesome and super Ready Player One-esque. So imagine this, you have a full suit that's full body tracked with multi-point motion capture, haptic feedback, and vibrations that run through the entire thing, biometric sensors from ECG ECG, that's electrocardiogram, essentially a heartbeat monitor, to a galvanic skin response sensor that measures changes in the electrical resistance of the skin from changes in stress. Well, this is actually already a thing, not just taken from the Ready Player One book. You may have heard of it before, as the TESLASUIT isn't exactly anything super new, but it's come back into the limelight, for me at least, due to the gloves announcement. The suit and the gloves can be connected via Wi-Fi, and now not only do you have tracked touchy-feely suits, but you also have touchy-feely gloves that all work together. Of course, this is an industry product. TESLASUIT has made that pretty clear. Back when they were first announced, there was a lot more gaming lingo being thrown around, which makes me feel like the developers really wanted to implement this sort of tech for us, the VR gaming consumers, but industry is where the money's at least at the moment. The suit is already being used for rehabilitation, training for rescue services, and tons of other places. The new gloves will be shown off and available for demo at CES this year in just a little more than a week. Now, in terms of pricing for all of this, actually it may surprise you, it's not that bad. I mean, it's all extremely expensive, but for what you get and how expensive something like the Vario VR2 is, coming up to $6,000 for just a headset, well, at least according to the latest Kickstarter, the suit comes up to $1,500 for the Pioneer Edition and $2,700 for the Prodigy Edition. With 80 full channels of haptics and sensors and 10 motion capture sensors, of course, a lot has happened between the Kickstarter and now, so those prices may be inaccurate, or at least inaccurate for us. That's not nearly as bad as I'd think for something as advanced as the T-Suit. The gloves, however, are coming in to around $5,000, and we'll be getting a lot more information on them in the coming weeks. Look, really, I talk about stuff like this on this channel because it's freaking cool. I know I can't go out and buy these items, and there probably isn't even a ton of software support, but looking at how VR is booming recently and how it's expected to keep booming, it's only a matter of time before tech like this gets closer and closer to being in the consumer's hands, or more like on the consumer's hands. My personal opinion is that it would take something like this to warrant a full VR 2.0, as some people call it. I mean, if you look at how wild a place like VR chat is now, just imagine thousands of people walking around with these on, or getting into a fist fight with a null body to have them punch you in the kidney and you actually feel it. Either way, it's all just really cool stuff that I'll continue to talk about as we get closer and closer to this sort of stuff coming into our own homes for an affordable price, because it's gonna happen. And now, off to a meme break! So I don't mean to make myself a meme this week, but I recently went to play The Forest in VR for the very first time, and I'll tell you already, I don't do great in VR horror games. Jump scares get me in VR for sure, but I have never actually screamed on the top of my lungs in VR until this happened.
Oh my god, they're moving! Ah!
I mean, how was I supposed to expect that? Alright, well, back to the news. Up until this point, I've been kind of curious as to why real sports games haven't been in VR yet. I mean, I get it. Soccer would be pretty impossible without full body tracking, and not enough people have full body for you to warrant making a whole game out of it. But things like American football or basketball or a really good baseball game hypothetically should work really well in VR. We just haven't gotten to it yet. But one of the original visions for VR football is actually coming to the Quest, and I can imagine not having a tether actually lends itself pretty well to a VR sports game. 2MD VR Football will be coming to the Quest soon and focuses heavily on passing the ball, and that kind of makes sense. It's the most interaction typical controllers can really have in a game like this. I do still think that VR sports games akin to Echo Arena are a pretty untapped market in the future, but I also think that you need some pretty innovative mechanics for it to really be that engaging. So this is kind of old news, but I just wanted to remind everyone, since I keep leaving it out in my videos on accident, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners is going to be releasing January 23rd on the Steam and Oculus store, and will be coming to PlayStation VR later in the year. This is another game that I've been massively excited for, even though I pretty much have forgotten about the whole Walking Dead franchise. The game itself just looks like a fantastic VR game. Node showed off a decent chunk of the gameplay, and between the story elements that seem to be present and the physics interactions, it just looks to be a good game in VR. It is available for pre-order right now for $39.99 for the standard edition and $49.99 for the digital deluxe edition that comes with some crafting recipes and bonus in-game cosmetics. Eek. I guess the collector's edition is a little cooler, actually coming with a physical headset-tailored backpack and a thumb drive, like a literal thumb drive, which is pretty funny, but it does come up to $149.99. I kind of didn't expect pre-order bonuses like this to pop up in VR games for a while, but I guess here we are. And now on to question of the week by Lizardflap. Do you have any stock in any VR companies? Do you think it would be smart to invest? Because I don't want to miss this like how people missed investing in Apple. No, I don't have any stock in VR companies. Here's the thing, if you want to invest in a VR hardware company, it's kind of rough because you have Facebook, HTC, and a couple other smaller guys. But everyone else is a private company like Valve and even Vario. So while I don't personally own stock in Facebook or HTC, if a newcomer were to arrive to the scene and go public, it's certainly something I would consider. I do wonder how that works though with covering or reviewing products from a company that you're personally invested in though. Let's say a new company called, I don't know, Pops VR comes out and starts making headsets and goes public, and I or someone else that reviews these things owns stock within that company. I feel like there's a serious conflict of interest which would probably keep me from ever investing stock in a situation like that. For everyone else though, I'd keep my eyes open at new tech startups in the VR field for sure. I mean, I'll probably end up covering it here. Make sure to leave your question of the week in the comments below. I may just answer yours next. It could be about anything, me, VR, ancient aliens, whatever. So I'm going on a trip this coming week and I'll be gone for a while, but I'll still be pumping out videos, and Tuesday Newsday will actually come on Tuesday next week. I'm bringing my full rig so I can still do videos and stuff. I'll also be streaming on Twitch as much as I can, so if you want updates on my schedule for the week, follow up on my Twitch and join in my Discord and you could stay updated. I also want to thank you so much for all my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas like Skeleto, Ninjo, Unbreakable, and Walter. I couldn't be doing any of this without you. Seriously, you guys are just amazing. I've been trying to work to add more stuff to the Patreon, like posting these scripts here after every video, along with seeing what other cool stuff I could do over there. Alright, well, don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.